disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Been a fantastic day so far. So it's official, folks. They can't hide from it any longer. They had to come forward and admit that Joe Biden is actually in a mental decline. I know, shocking, considering all the coverage that we have shown on this channel and all the coverage that people have seen already and know what a mental decline disaster this buffoon of a president really is. Now it's come forward to the establishment and the mainstream media. Now they have to come to the conclusion that maybe their precious Uncle Joe, sleazebag Biden is not actually mentally there. And it's hard for them. It's hard for them because they kept in denial for so long. And denial's not just a river in Egypt. They tried so hard to try to bolster him as much as possible, making up stories saying that, oh, even though he's slow on the memory, he's still able to run and lead this into a prosperous nation. Now, it's more harder to do so because even special counsels inside the White House have admitted to his diminishing mental stability. So this is from the CBC saying diminished faculties, faulty memories, significant limitations, a damaging report on Biden's mental state. Special counsel report exonerates president legally and ravages him politically. And it says a wince including report has just made it much harder for U.S. President Joe Biden to quell concerns about his age as he seeks re-election. The special counsel report released Thursday paints the 81-year-old president as suffering from mental decline and points to several examples of Biden's hours-long interviews and investigators. They include Biden struggling to remember what years he was vice president and being way off when discussing the year of his son's death. This report landed amid stinging headlines involving the president's repeated references lately to having recent conversations with long-dead world leaders. Maybe he has the sixth sense. Hey, you can't diminish someone who has the ability to talk to dead people. That's an asset in a lot of different ways. A furious Biden reacted at an impromptu evening news conference where he fumed at the special counsel for mentioning his dead son, Beau. How in the hell do you dare raise that? Biden said. As proof of his fitness, he cited his major legislative and other wins like getting humanitarian aid to Gaza, which is a humanitarian crisis. He quotes the thing that was the absolute worst crisis for the Palestinians as his big victory because he remembered to do it. He remembered where Gaza was, so that makes him officially the smartest man in the room. However, he promptly undermined his own message by referring to Egypt's Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as the president of Mexico. He can't help himself. And I said this all throughout. It's not to pick on his age, because age is not the problem here. It's the mental ability in coordination with his job title. The fact that he's the United States president responsible for 330 plus million people and more to come, in charge of 50 states and foreign affairs and the economy and this and the other, and he's not able to walk off stage himself is concerning. It's concerning. When you have that much responsibility and you can't even be responsible for your own actions, that's very concerning, regardless of what age you are. One obvious silver lining in the 345-page report is that special counsel Robert Hur refused to lay charges against Biden for purposely storing classified documents in 3 locations. Because of mental decline? Like, why exactly? Why didn't they lay charges on him? They laid charges on Trump, but not him. Again, these are two old farts that are starting to lose their memory. That has nothing to do with the fact that they stole documents. And again, every president has stole documents. Like, such a farce. It criticized Biden for willfully and wrongfully keeping some documents, but it said others were accidentally mishandled. The report also credits Biden's behavior as cooperative with investigators, contrasting with Donald Trump's actions in a similar case. So the report exonerated Biden legally, but ravaged him politically. The report struck Biden in a sensitive area, as voter skepticism about his age and ability posed a severe threat to his re-election prospects. And it was such a threat that he had to get his subordinates in the mainstream media to help defend this, and one of them being MSNBC, because of how tied they are to the Democratic Party, willfully just defending them in whichever way possible. And here's the roundtable of MSNBC hosts, the Democratic defenders, denouncing this report and saying that Biden still, even though he's demented and just can't do it, can still do it. In the just most disregarded, incoherent, out of touch way possible, which is classic for MSNBC. Take a look.
Especially this line that the president quoted, where the report refers to him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. What is the word elderly doing there? And poor memory, what is the test of that? Might that be Donald Trump saying, I don't recall 400 times under oath in the same deposition? Is that a good test of it? The idea that witnesses over a 40-year discussion, don't remember everything.
So right off the bat, Lawrence O'Donnell the report struck a nerve with him because of the fact that he used the word elderly on Biden. The man is 81 years old, ladies and gentlemen. 81 years old. That is considered elderly. That's considered elderly. That's not just the report saying that. That's just general analysis. That's general human life. When you're 81 years old, you're considered an elderly man or an elderly woman. You're considered a senior citizen. By definition of just human context. That's not an insult to Biden. That's just his age. That's who he is. That's again that's also pointing out that he's, before baby boomers. That's not to insult him. That's how he was born in that era. That's not his fault. That's not anyone's fault. He just happens to be that age. But that apparently struck a nerve with Lawrence O'Donnell. And then also saying that he's losing memory and comparing that to, when Trump was under oath, he couldn't remember things. Again, there's a difference between not remembering things that happened 20 or 10 years ago or something that insignificant that happened like a week ago. Because, again, I sometimes forget certain things. I forget little things here and there that are insignificant. Does that mean I'm suffering memory loss? Maybe. I don't know. But it's a difference between that and saying that you talked to a dead president that's been dead for 20 plus years, or lying about your college record, or lying about your vision for humanitarian aid to Gaza. There's a huge significance to that. Huge difference between lying about insignificant things that have really nothing to do with people and being the president and willfully lie that is an absolute absurdity. Like that's a huge difference. And Lawrence O'Donnell, because he's supported the Democratic Party, not an actual true journalist, criticizing the Democratic Party, criticizing Biden, holding the flames to the powerful. He's just baffled by the fact that they call him an elderly, man that's losing touch with his memory. Like, that happens to everybody. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to him at some point.
Or that someone who graduates from college in June can't tell you where the diploma is in September. That seems to be a condition that this special prosecutor doesn't understand in the human mind. So I'm going to be
Again, what does where your diploma is have anything to do with the corruption or the way you handle management of the country? Like, again, these are insignificant, clueless questions. It's like asking me what I had for dinner 3 weeks ago. Well, you don't know what you had last, 2 Fridays ago? How would I know? I ate dinner. That's it. It's an insignificant question, but I can remember Biden lying about, so many different things because we have fundamental proof of his track record that shows not only just a bad memory, but he's a compulsive liar because he works inside the deep state. He works inside the establishment. He lies about many different things. He lies about being the president for the black people, when we know verbatim that President Joe Biden is responsible for the 1994 incarceration bill. We know that Joe Biden said on a morning radio show that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And yet MSNBC willfully lies about this every single day, that Joe Biden is the greatest president for minorities. Even though Trump is leading the way when it comes to minority groups in America.
Be fascinated when I can get into all these hundreds of pages to see what is it that makes you stress the lack of memory in this particular case, where you have this completely cooperative witness, and there has never been a witness under oath anywhere being questioned over a period of years of that witness's life where they don't say, I do not recall. It is impossible to ask witnesses questions where they answer will not be, I don't recall. And if you don't get that response, it just means you didn't ask enough questions.
Can I speak just on that? Because I had the same thought. It's fairly standard lawyering to advise people, even when in doubt or you think you might remember. If you can credibly say, I don't recall about something, that's a standard legal advice. And it has nothing to do with the age of the person giving the deposition.
When you're under oath, you can't lie. If you do recall, you have to say that you can, but if you can't...
Exactly. Well, that's the whole point, right, Rachel? That basically, because of those standards, the extra burden that you don't want to get anything wrong means you err on the side of saying, I don't recall, I don't remember, unless you really specifically do. And if there's a thing that might seem minor and you're not sure and you're being asked about a very specific aspect of it, like, was it in the morning, that meeting, or was it in the afternoon? And you had that meeting that day and you even refreshed your notes. I don't recall what time of day. And so,
it is kind of mesmerizing that we're watching a room full of professional liars on MSNBC giving us a lecture on how not to lie in a legal sense. Like, oh, well, if you can't say that you don't recall. If you do actually recall something, that's called a lie. But if you don't recall something, you admit that you don't recall something, that's okay. That's okay. So all the times that MSNBC has lied to us about, COVID or Russiagate or Ukraine or Israel-Palestine or the election or anything like that, and we know that they lied, we know that they've been caught lying, and then they tried to whitewash it by saying that they did not say that, even though we have on record to saying that. How exactly do you respond to that? How does Rachel Maddow respond to her own lies if someone showed it to her? Is she going to just do the exact same thing? Well, I don't recall saying that. That was, 2 years ago. Well, yeah, 2 years ago. After all the information was available to people saw that information. You didn't see that information because you were bought and paid for by the big pharmaceutical industries. You're bought and paid for by the war industrial complex. You've been compromised. It's not that you just don't remember. It's because you've definitely lied to people.
oh my gosh, you're 25 and you can't tell the morning and night apart? I will tell you this because we're going to get into all of it, but the president came out and spoke tonight because on the one hand, he has very good news. This exhaustive investigation led by a Trump-era holdover prosecutor cleared him of the wrongdoing on classified documents.
No charges.
Cleared him. No charges. End of story. Case closed. Good news. But he has a political piece of bad news woven in there, which is what seems like cheap shot, derogatory attacks on him, which I wouldn't call normal course of investigatory material. And so maybe Mr. Hur would be better suited going for a job as White House physician. but he'd have to go and get a medical degree, too, because legally there's no interest or relevance to his views of the president's overall memory. If it's very specifically to the mental criminal intent or mens rea, and you say you couldn't have this criminal intent and you didn't remember this, you didn't mean to do it, sure. But talking about how, for example, the president remembers or discusses his son's death and Mr. Hur and his team's apparent view that tells you.
I love how they're, again, they're trying to whitewash this. Like, no one has concerns for the president's health. No one has concerns for Biden's memory. I recall, and I do recall this, that over the entire period that Biden's been president, everybody has mentioned at least once about his mental health. Everybody has mentioned at least once his age, his clear signs of dementia. People have quoted that there's clear, obvious signs of mental decline. But the people that didn't want to admit to that was MSNBC. And MSNBC tried to skew that away, saying that people bring this up were conspiracy nuts. They're Trumpers. They're MAGA Republicans. They're idiots. They don't know how to run the country. That's why they work blue-collar jobs. They were trying to smear people in the most absurd way possible. But there was obvious signs, obvious clues, obvious tales. And now he has the audacity to go on air and say that no one was concerned about this. So it's not like we care about this report. And maybe this Burr guy should just become a doctor, a White House physician, and get off our faces. Like, this report was nothing. No, it proves that everybody that was paying attention was actually right. And the people that weren't paying attention are the same idiots that are lecturing you on how not to lie and what the legal terms are for lying. It's just, it's such a messed up is down, black is white, like, just turn of events here. To watch master liars on MSNBC giving you the legal analysis on different ways to lie. And again, all this is trying to cover up the fact that Joe Biden is a demented person. And I'm not saying that as an attack on him. I'm saying that if he does have mental decline, he should not be running the country. And this is actually in concern of him. I'm actually trying to be considerate to the Biden family. If you have someone that's suffering mental illness and mental decline, they need help. They need help. They need assistance. They need to rest and take care of themselves. They don't need the responsibility of dealing with the economy, especially when the economy has already gone to shit. But they rather have a demented circus freak like Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is just a mirage of who's running the country. He is just the mascot to the actual players that are responsible for the carnage of this country. And the actual people responsible are the people that are invested in trying to protect his mental ability and still saying that, well, he may be slow and 81, but he still got spunk.
Something. As soon as I saw that today, I thought, wow, that's a real partisan kind of tell in a report that has a good news legal headline.
And the president just showing absolute rage at that point tonight.
There was one adverb in particular that struck me, which is painfully, which the author of this report, presumably Mr. Hur himself, uses. The president his memory was painfully bad, or
it was some of the tapes they heard were painfully slow. The discussion was painfully slow.
That's right, painfully slow. And I just thought, well, who's in pain? Like, what that adverb is it's doing so much work editorially. Well, you're in pain because it takes too long. Like, it's just very clear. Just contained in that adverb is this kind of like siren call that's leaping off the page about him understanding exactly how this is going to resonate.
A little political.
And that, my friends, is Chris Hayes punching himself harder than ever in his own dick. That is him, like, taking a hammer and just smashing his own balls in the stupid argument that he made there. Like, oh, they said it's painful. Well, who is it painful for? Because I still have a job. I still making lucrative money at MSNBC. I still have a career at Comcast. Who's it really hurting? I don't know, maybe the other 50%, the other working class people that are struggling under this demented government regime that's held together by duct tape and glue sticks. Maybe those people are suffering. Maybe because they don't have a competent administration that is coherent enough to actually respond to the crisis in America. Like, how dumb are these people? How dumb are these people? Maybe we should have an IQ test for MSNBC. Maybe we should be looking at the mental stability of news anchors on mainstream media. Because if they can't even comprehend why this report came out, why people are so invested in the mental stability of our presidents, then clearly you are the demented one. You clearly need to have a brain scan. Because if you can't understand why this is so significant, why this is so important, then maybe you should be having your head checked. And unfortunately, I don't have the clip with me, but afterwards, there was a back and forth between Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow, and Chris Hayes, again, continuously punching his own dick with the stupid argument of, oh, well, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. It's not hurting anybody. And then Rachel Maddow responds with, well, he can ride a bike. That's the last argument that MSNBC has. The last foot on the stool that's breaking. The last leg they have is that Joe Biden rides a bike. And notice how he didn't say successfully. Rachel Maddow didn't say that Joe Biden rides a bike successfully, because we know the bike famous video where he fell off the bike numerous times. So, yes, the president does ride a bike, but not successfully. And again, the purpose of this is the fact that Joe Biden is an elderly man with severe consequences of mental decline, and he should not be responsible. He should not be held in the pedestal that the rest of the establishment's putting him on, and really be focusing on himself. Like, him and his wife Jill should be at home. He should be taking care of himself, being with grandkids, being with the loved ones, and not have anything to do with politics, and be concerned about his health. And I'm saying this in defense of him. I'm saying this in defense of Joe Biden, because I know what a master war criminal thug that when he had mental stability is. And honestly, probably the dementia is the benefit of the doubt, because now he'll forget exactly how much of a war criminal piece of shit garbage insider that he is, and how much of a whore he is to the Democratic establishment. Because again, when he started politics, we have proof of it. When he started politics, he said he was going to whore himself out to every lobby group. And guess what he did? He whored himself to every lobby group, and now he's the president. So it's definitely worked in favor for him, but his mental decline is problematic for the rest of the country. It's problematic because of the incompetency on top of the corruption, on top of everything else. He just doesn't have it. He's not all there. And considering the fact that you have the choice between Trump or Biden, these two elderly men that just aren't there at all at this point, shows what an utter disgrace, a failure, and a joke democracy is in America. And how America is a failed state. Because they can't even get comprehensive people to get them to get to the marks of leadership. They can't even get comprehensive people in responsible fields. Like, it's just, it's absurdity. Really just an absolute absurdity. And the fact that MSNBC is so on defense of this, that's laughable. That makes a mockery of whatever journalism they ever had, is just so crazy. So crazy. Because anyone with any brain cells could easily look at that report, see all the massive clips of Joe Biden that are circulating of his mental decline. The ability not to get off stage, the messing up of words, the saying that he's talked to dead presidents, like everything that he's done is defense of his mental decline and showing significantly why people are concerned about this.